Okay, there's one more interesting din before we go to the din of Maftir. What happens if it's a Shabbos where you have 3 Sefer Torahs? It's 3 Sefer Torahs, but you only have 2. So which one do you use for the third one? Okay, so you read the first Sefer, then you have the second Sefer. Now you need to read for the third Sefer Torah, but you only have 2. No, that's not what it's saying. Interesting. No, that's what I'm saying. Interesting, so Ramah at the end in Hilchos Simchas Torah, the Ramah writes that you use the first Sefer Torah. Even though the second one might be closer, but you use the first one. I didn't see a reason why, but that's what the Ramah Kitzur brings it down also, but the Ramah brings, what?
I suggest a reason why, I think.
Let me hear.
Because if you're doing halacha with each one, and you just did that one, and then doing it again with the same one.
No, but you're reading in the middle.
Right, but it's still, this is like the whole process of
Sorry.
wrapping it up.
Sorry. Okay, what? You only have 2, what are you going to do?
The second one is closer.
You have to do Arba in the second one anyway. It doesn't matter. Once you're rolling already, it doesn't matter.
You're going to be rolling the second one while you're reading.
Okay, then now the din of Maftir, like we discussed the other day, Maftir is an institution that came when there were decrees against reading the Torah, so then the Chum instituted Maftir and then stayed, but we don't want to make Haftorah, which is Nevi'im, as precious as Torah, so we read over in the first Sefer Torah, we read again the 3 psukim, or at least. Okay, so before Maftir you have to say half Kaddish, like we learned to separate it. Now when you do Kaddish, okay, so we learned yesterday, you do Kaddish after the mandatory 7 aliyahs on Shabbos. So before you do Kaddish, you bring the second Sefer Torah up, then put it down next to it and you say Kaddish. But when you finish the second one, you don't need to bring the third because you're not saying Kaddish anyway. So now like this, the Gemara says, this is all from the Gemara, I didn't say it, but the Gemara says, the guy that's reading the Haftarah, is the brachas, you say the brachas and then the Haftarah, and then the brachas after the Haftarah, he's not allowed to begin saying the brachas of the Haftarah until the Sefer Torah is completely wrapped. You know, you finish Glila, you wrap it, you put the cover on, the crown on, then he's allowed to begin reading the Haftarah. The reason for that is very simple, because the guy that's tying the Torah also has to listen to the Haftarah. So if he's busy tying the Sefer Torah, he's not going to be able to listen to the Haftarah. Okay, there's parts of those brachas, separate brachas, whatever. It's now, believe it or not, you're not allowed to talk during the Haftarah. Yeah, sorry. You're not allowed to talk during the reading of Haftarah. B'chlal, when a Sefer Torah is out, you're not allowed to talk, period. It's all part of the Torah reading. So you're not allowed to talk. Generally speaking, people shouldn't talk from the beginning words of davening until the last Kaddish at the end of davening.
These are rules for Jews.
Jews, yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Your father, he should be a good to better. I was once screaming, the guys were talking during davening, this is years ago, and I was screaming in the middle of davening. I said, why is it in the conservative and reformed temples, they're quiet, and in the Orthodox shows, they're talking? I mean, there should be that, they should understand. So your father gave me a good explanation. Your father said that Orthodox shul, everybody feels at home. At home, you talk. He said in a conservative temple, it's like there's actors on stage. It's an acting. It's not, people don't feel at home in those types of temples, and they do. It's a good explanation. It doesn't justify it, but it explains it. Anyway, now, normally when the guy says the Haftarah, the main thing is the guy says the Haftarah loud. In certain Hungarian communities, the guy says the brachas, and he's quiet. Everybody says the Haftarah together. But the proper thing in halacha, that's their minhag. But in halacha it says the proper thing is for one guy to read it out loud, and everybody should read along quietly together with him. They shouldn't say it out loud. And what else is over there? Okay. Yeah, that's it. So the custom is people should read the Haftarah together with the guy, word by word. They should read it with him quietly.
Why is there a concept of reading the Haftarah as opposed to Kriyas HaTorah itself?
Kriyas HaTorah, if you're reading it, you're not going to be able to hear the Balkara, and that's a chiyuv. This is not a chiyuv. Like, Kriyas HaTorah is a chiyuv Vaad Rabbonim, to listen to, or Minat Torah, if you count Moshe Rabbeinu's thing. But here, it's a minute to read it along together, because when the Gzeira was, so then they have people reading it.
There's some things that say you can read together with the Balkara in order to Yetzi Shnai Mikra.
It says that in Shulchan Aruch, that if you want to read, Alter Rebbe brings that down also, that there's one opinion that says you could read it along together with the Balkara, but Alter Rebbe doesn't like it in Shulchan Aruch. He says it's not a good idea to do, because then you can't really listen when you're talking. And the question is, do you listen to, can you hear two voices at the same time? So there are opinions that say, but the Yavid you could be Yetzi, but Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch says you really shouldn't do like that. Mavis said, you should do it separately. But here it doesn't matter by the Haftarah, because you're reading it, it's to a zeicher of something that happened many years ago, and that's it. Now what happens when you have two parshias together? Like you have Bahar B'Chokai say Achim Es Kadeshim. So generally speaking, not always, generally speaking, the Haftarah is the second parsha's Haftarah, because the Haftarah has to be what you're ending the Torah reading with. In other words, that's why, for instance, if you have, let's say Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, right? So you have two Sefer Torahs. The first one you read the Parsha of the week. The second one you read the Rosh Chodesh. So therefore the Haftarah is Rosh Chodesh of Shabbos, the Haftarah of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Or if it's Machar Chodesh, so then it's a different story, because even though it's not connected directly, it's connected to the day. So generally speaking, it says by Achim Es Kadeshim, it's a little bit different. Generally speaking, if you notice, there's a lot of different customs when it comes to the Haftarahs. You see in the Chumashim, you have the Ashkenazim and you have the Sfardim, the different customs. So in Chabad, we have a list. Based on the Rebbe Marash's saying of the Haftarah, we have the list what our minig is. Most of the time, it's like the Sfardim do the Haftarah. Many times, a number of times, it's like the Ashkenazi. Sometimes it's both together, whatever. But generally speaking, there are different customs. So an Ashkenazic show is supposed to say Ashkenazic Haftarah, Sfardic say Sardic Haftarah. And again, even in those, they find different places. Even in the back of the Chumashim, you say, in this country they did this, in this country they did, whatever it is. But that's what it is.
If you do it wrong, what is it?
What?
Let's say you do the wrong.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. What happens at Shabbos Rosh Chodesh? You're supposed to say the Haftarah of Rosh Chodesh, Hashemayim Kisi. And by mistake, you said the Parsha one. So the thing is like this. If you didn't say the brachas yet at the end, you say, in addition to what you just said from the Parsha, you say the whole Haftarah of Hashemayim Kisi. Then you say the brachas. What happens if you said the brachas already afterwards, and then you realize, it's Rosh Chodesh, you need to say a different Haftarah. So then the din is you read the new Haftarah without brachas. Without the brachas, you read the new Haftarah. But it happens a lot of times. It happens way more than it should. Kids that are not religious come to the Chabad house and they're learning for the Bar Mitzvah. Okay, so they're learning the Haftarah. Many of them, right? How to say the Haftarah. The problem is the guy forgot to look at the calendar to see which the real Haftarah is. And then it comes out that the kid practiced a wrong Haftarah, okay? And it's not a from kid that can he'll do another one. It doesn't work like that. Or if they learned the wrong Kriya, don't ask. The moral of the story is when you're teaching somebody something, just make sure you have a calendar, make sure you know which Haftarah is and which Torah reading is and this and that. And that it happens a lot of times. This happened recently to me. That I got called twice about this. They miscalculated the kid's birthday. So normally you have to be bar mitzvah before you read in the Torah. But they miscalculated the kid's birthday. The kid's birthday was after Shabbos, and they taught him the kriya of before he's bar mitzvah, before he's 13. So the whole issue, like, what do you do? The kid's not bar mitzvah yet. Oh, it's a lot of issues. It's not very complicated. What you can do.
What do you do? Because I've known a couple people this has happened to. Sometimes the kriya in the galut and in Eretz Yisrael is not the same kriya. And I've seen bar mitzvah bachos who studied the kriya based upon what it was going to be in the galut, and then they go to Israel and they're like, nobody wants to let them do that.
Yeah, but you see, in Israel, when it's a different parsha,
Yeah.
there's always minyanim by the kotel for the Americans.
Okay.
They're always, no, because there's tons of Americans there that you have that when the last day of Pesach is Shabbos. Okay? So then, by us, we're still reading Yom Tov Kriya. But them, Yom Tov is over, so they're reading that Shabbos is Kriya. So they're a whole week ahead of us. And that can go on until Matis Maseh. So you're talking about like 3-4 months that they're different Kriya. Then you have an interesting shaila. Can you get an aliyah? Let's say you're an American, okay, and you go to Israel. They're reading a different parsha than we are. They're ahead of us 1 week in those cases, right? So now are you allowed to get an aliyah? Let's say by you it's achrei and by them it's kadeshin. Okay, let's say, right? So they're reading kadeshin, but by you really it should be the kriya of achrei meis. So the question is, are you allowed to get an aliyah? So then over there, the boss can talk about all this, but over there you could get an aliyah. The question is a different question. A guy from Israel comes to America, and he's keeping 1 day Yom Tov, let's say. Can he get an aliyah on the 2nd day Yom Tov, which by him is not Yom Tov? So over there it depends a lot. If it's a day of Torah reading anyway, it's one thing. If it's not a day of Torah reading, it's a different day. So for instance, can an Israeli guy come to America who keeps Simchas Torah on Shmini Atzeres, right? Can he get an aliyah on Simchas Torah? And then the question is even more. Can he have Maftir? Can he have Chosin Torah? Can he have Chosin Bereshis? Can he have... Then it's not a regular aliyah. By him, that's also to be discussed.